Good evening, all. Boxing Gossip podcast number 27. Do hope everyone is doing well. First and foremost, my apologies for the later start tonight, starting at 9:30 for one off. That's completely my fault due to a work commitment. So accept my apologies for that. We'll be back up and running. We're on a slightly tighter timescale tonight. We're going to try and squeeze everything we need to do into an hour or so. So we're gonna get straight into it. We're gonna rattle through it, and we're gonna start by bringing on Jet. Jet, I guess there's only one place to start this week. I know you and I have discussed it before, mate, but we've got to do it again. Joshua versus Molina. Your sort of initial reaction to that fight, mate?
Yeah, not quite unsurprised. I'm not really keen on the fight. I mean, the fight is a sort of learning fight for Joshua, I guess, in a way. He's obviously Eric Molina has obviously beaten Thomas Ademic. Deontay Wilder, he gave a few troubles to Wilder. So he's faced Arreola. I know he lost quite convincingly in that fight, but he's been in there with some sort of better opposition. So yeah, good luck to Eric Molina. He seems like a nice guy and that sort of stuff. But I think he's out of his depth against Joshua here, and Joshua's just simply too good. I think I've been speaking to some of my mates who are kind of casuals, to be fair, and they're saying I'm buzzing for this fight and that sort of stuff. But I can't see the excitement on it. Chisora White will probably be bit more exciting. Depends what Chisora turns up, I guess. But yeah, Joshua, sort of within 6, I think.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to write that down, Jet. Jet's gone. Joshua within 6. To be honest, I would completely agree with that prediction. Jet and I very much on the same page there. Jet, if you look back at the Wilder fight, and if you look at the problems Molina caused Wilder, do you envisage him causing similar problems for Anthony Joshua?
Yeah, I mean, he does some good stuff to the body sometimes, Eric Molina, but generally he does throw his punches quite wide, and he's quite like slow in terms of his sort of hand speed and that sort of stuff. So maybe to the body, I think he can give a problem to Joshua, but I think Joshua's slightly more educated than Deontay Wilder. I know Deontay Wilder has a good jab when he gets it popping, but I think Joshua, when he gets the jab going and he can sort of, not dance around the ring, but he just plants his feet, pops the jab open, and it's a very stiff jab when he uses it. It's a good jab at times when he does use it. So, as I said, I don't think Deontay is going to be a Deontay Wilder sort of performance where Joshua's going to be sort of, bouncing up and down on his toes and moving. But, I assume, Joshua just kind of control the center of the ring. Ring generalship will be much better. Ring IQ, everything will be much better. And I think, Joshua's just a league above. Eric Molina's sort of a top 30 heavyweight, top 35 heavyweight. But, on the basis of stuff, I mean, Thomas Ademic is shot to bits. I mean, he's a very, very small heavyweight. He's probably a light heavyweight at best. So, you kind of have to look at Eric Molina, who's he actually beaten, who's he looked great against, not many. And he's coming off a good win, but as I said, not against the sort of a fighter in his peak. And I just think Joshua's, going to be too much for him. He's going to steamroll him, and it's going to be easy work for him.
Good stuff. Now, on the undercard, you've got Chisora versus Dillian White. Presuming that's been made because Eric Molina versus Anthony Joshua is probably going to lack spice in terms of the build-up, whereas this fight is going to be the opposite. Do you think this fight is probably going to be more entertaining at the press conference than in the actual ring itself?
Yeah, possibly. I think what it is, it'll be, Dillian White kind of saying, oh, Chisora, you're a bum. You fought no one. You have the same robotic style. Don Charles is rubbish. I made Ian Lewis and quit, so I'm going to make Don Charles pull you out and that sort of stuff. And he's just going to go kind of rant and rave, and it's going to go back and forth. You'll get your occasional funny one-liners and that sort of stuff. But I can see the fight going, one of two ways. Chisora pours it on Dillian White and he completely steamrolls him, or Dillian White just gets a jab going and just try and move on the back foot, with his slow sort of hand speed, and then we get a shot to bits Chisora. That's probably the way I see it going. Dillian White will try and box from range, and Chisora will come forward, throw the occasional kind of awkward looping punches, and probably lose, fairly decently on the scorecard, maybe like 8-4 or something like that, I reckon. But yeah, I mean, it's funny to an extent with Dillian White, but and Chisora, but then sometimes it does, you want to see them perform in the ring, not just outside the ring with all their antics. I think we've seen most of this funny stuff with Chisora turning up at Dillian White's sort of signing to Matchroom and that sort of stuff. We've already seen the sort of, pre-match hype. So yeah, well, let's see if it lives up to it during the actual fight itself.
Yeah, and Jet, one final thing.
Yeah.
Just before you were off air, you mentioned that the fight's a WBC eliminator. I'd heard that as well. So talk us through that. How relevant do you think that is?
Well, Dillian White obviously says he's been talking this week, and he's been saying, "I want a WBC world title shot. I want a world title shot in 2017. If I win this fight, I go quite high, and I want to face the Deontay Wilders, the Andy Joshuas, the Luis Ortizes, those sort of guys." He says I can beat them. So whether or not he can beat them is a different question within itself. But he says he wants those guys. So my theory is that they've obviously. I know we're going to come on to probably Vladimir and Andy Joshua, the WBA sanctioning that fight in spring 2017 for the super title. My theory is that, AJ, they're going to throw him down the Dillian White rematch route, do a ton of pay-per-view buys on that route as well, build it up, loads of grudge, loads of hype, and AJ's going to win that fight. And, they're both going to get a ton of money. I think that's why they're pushing that Dillian White down this route. Maybe off air, you mentioned David Price. David Price might be next. If he beats David Price and stays in the mix, AJ rematch is right there. But he'll probably go after Wilder. I think he'll be number 5 or 6 in the WBC. He's not a final eliminator, but it gets him high up in the rankings. So we'll see where it goes from there.
Yeah, I hear you. I expect that Joshua White rematch will get made. It's a mega money matchup. It's the reason that Hearn is working with Dillian White for my money. And as you guys know, I've always been skeptical of the Klitschko fight. But thank you, Jet. Very, very insightful. Let's move on. We'll move at quite a pace tonight, and we'll go over to Irish Tom, and we'll come to Paul next. So, Irish Tom, we spoke initially about Joshua and Molina, mate. You weren't made up on the fight. Obviously, there's been a lot of news about it. Have you had the chance to change your opinion or reflect at all, mate?
Yeah, well, do you remember when Wilder fought Molina for the first time? Do you remember when that was announced?
Yes.
I think people thought it was pure shite, but that was his first defense, and this is Joshua's second defense. So it's pure shite. I wonder how much they're paying for them. I just watched that Eddie Hearn video today, and he was talking about, I don't want to get into the money part, but we offered them this and that, but never said how much they were offering. So, I think it's just crap. He's obviously signed a contract that he has to guarantee Joshua so much and all this, and he's talking all this nonsense about a big card. It looks like, I don't even think it's a good card, to be honest with you. I think it'll be shite. I don't know. I don't know. This fight could end at any point. I don't know how long it could go. It could go as far as Brazil. Eddie Hearn said it's a tougher fight than Brazil. I don't know. I think Brazil has got a better chin. But whether he hits as hard, I don't think so as Molina. So I just think it's a pretty shit fight. What's there to look? The card, I don't know. This idea of the headline being crap and it's all about the card, that is rubbish. Whoever buys a pay-per-view to look at the card? Most people who buy a pay-per-view don't look at the card. That's just some rubbish he can sell to actual boxing fans when it's a rubbish headline.
Yeah, I mean, there are occasions. I mean, who can forget that Billy Joe Saunders, Chris Eubank was actually an undercard fight, But I do agree with what you're saying. Most people buy the pay-per-view for the... See, I am someone, I actually buy the pay-per-view for the card, but I think I'm probably in the minority.
Yeah, we're definitely in the minority. Me too. I like that one that Frank put on. I was at that. I think you were at it as well, were you?
Yeah.
That was probably the best card, I'd say. I don't know. That was probably the best card in British boxing in a good few years, I'd say. I think that's been better than any of the matchroom ones in the last few years. But maybe there was one of the matchroom ones that was good. The Dillian White one might have been a good card too. But like it's I think the card stuff is nonsense. I think it's a really poor headline for pay-per-view. It's bullshit, to be honest with you. It's total bullshit. Like, I think the market has been saturated. Eddie Hearn is trying to change the way the British boxing market runs. It used to be not a pay-per-view market. He's trying to push it towards what it is like in, say, Denmark or New Zealand, somewhere like that, where every fight that's any way of a decent size is pay-per-view. One reason why they do it for pay-per-view in those smaller countries is because, they can't get the TV money because they've got a small population. You got New Zealand, you got 4 or 5 million. You got Denmark, 4 or 5 million. Britain's got 60 million people. So the money you get from advertising is just, it's going to be 10, 15 times more. And also, they're on a subscription service like Sky. They got an awful lot more money being pushed into it. So, we've been pushed down this route where every reasonable fight, not just like good fights, any fight by AJ and then other reasonable fights are all going on pay-per-view. I just think it's a load of nonsense. Anyway, but I don't pay for them, so I don't know. Yeah, I won't go on about it too much. But it's rubbish. But the one thing is, I watched the interview today, and Eddie Hearn's going on about how the Klitschko thing is happening, going to happen in April or whenever, and that the WBA have come out and sanctioned that for a unification for the WBA super belt. Now, so if that happens, I'll be pleased, man, because that's a very good fight. But we'll see if it does.
Yeah, absolutely. Tom, I won't bring you on to Chisora White because we've discussed that previously. But one fight I do want to bring you on to, Lucas Browne versus Shannon Briggs. Who on God's earth could have predicted that fight would have been made a month ago? But this is the crazy sport of boxing that we're in. What's your take on that fight, mate? Is that one you could have possibly foreseen, and how do you think it could go?
Well, I heard on the grapevine that David Hay has been spotted being put into a straitjacket and carted off to the mental hospital when he heard that, because he's got where's David Hay fitting in all this? Is he waiting for basically the WBO eliminator or mandatory? I don't know. Like, what is the story with the WBA? I thought they were getting rid of all these belts. Why did they have to have these belts? Like, surely when there's nobody having them, it's a good reason to get rid of them.
Isn't it?
I know, but they were talking about they're having these eliminators. They were going to have this fucking tournament. Do you remember the talk about the tournament and all the different people that have to fight just to figure out who would get the super title?
Yeah.
And then they got nobody having any titles. And then you can just have the top 2 guys fight for it. It's such rubbish.
It's a complete mess, isn't it? Yeah. But funnily enough, despite all of that, and I agree with you that it's nonsense and it's bizarre, Briggs versus Lucas Browne, I believe, it's not a top-level matchup. It's not number 1 versus number 2, or even number 5 versus number 6. I actually think that's got the propensity to be quite an entertaining scrap. What do you reckon?
Yeah, it's probably like number 20 against number 40. But, they're probably reasonably closely matched. But you'd have to assume Lucas Browne will win that because he's got a decent chin. And he's got better stamina. So if he's in as good a nick as he was against your man, now whether that was drug and juice or not, we'll never know. But he'll probably do it. But it's like waiting for 2 fat eggs, throw them at a wall and see which one cracks first.
Absolutely. And Tom, just one final question. Do you get saying AJ to beat Molina in 6? Are you backing that as well?
I think this is one of those fights that can go quite wide. I think it could end in the first round. I think I think it's very unlikely to end very early because AJ would basically be told. So I think it won't end in the first 3, just because, unless by accident. So I think it'll probably go like 6, but I think it could go 11 or it could go 1. I do give Molina Jr. A puncher's chance, though. I give anybody a puncher's. If these new stories are coming out about AJ getting rocked, I don't know if you want to talk about this now.
Yeah, go for it, mate. Yeah, bring it up.
Yeah, there was rumour today about the GB amateur. Don't know if he's turned pro yet. Lawrence Okoli.
Yeah.
And so he's heavyweight in amateurs, which is pretty much like cruiserweight, I think, in the pros. And apparently the rumour is that either this week or last week, Okoli dropped Joshua in sparring, I think quite heavily, and they quit sparring for the day. So he's getting dropped by an amateur 200-pounder. You know, what's going to happen when Joshua gets, or when AJ, or when Klitschko gets at him? But also Molina has a punch. You know, he's not, I wouldn't call Molina a knockout artist, but he is a heavyweight with a punch. You know, he's staggered Areola. Areola's got a good chin. He's staggered Wilder. Wilder seems to have a reasonably good chin too. So I think he's got a punch. But, you know, I think boxing skills-wise, AJ is in a different class.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Okay, thanks, Tom. I'll come back to you in a bit, mate. Let's go over to Paul. Paul, first and foremost, and again, I know it's one we've touched on before, mate, but Molina versus Joshua. Any change in your opinion as time's gone on?
It's a shit fight, but it's not as shit a fight as I think some people are making out. I mean, there's a couple of things I wanted to say about this, right? I think, like, one of the reasons why we're seeing it as a really shit fight is because it's a letdown after being promised Klitschko. Klitschko's nearly done and whatnot. I think it's the comparison to that is making it seem like a shit fight more than the fact that it's a shit fight. I mean, like, I've said this,
Paul. But Paul, like, do you remember when Wilder when they announced that was his first defence? Everybody shat on it. They said this is a rubbish defence, and now AJ is doing it.
Yeah, but we've got to remember that was Wilder's 34th fight. This is AJ's 17th fight. I mean, this is the kind of point I wanted to make. It's kind of like Tyson won the world title against Trevor Berbick in his 28th fight. Lennox Lewis beat Tucker in his 23rd fight. Fury beat Klitschko, 25th fight. Wilder, Stavern, 33rd fight. Vitaly Klitschko beat Herbie Hyde in his 25th fight. Vladimir in his 36th fight beat Chris Bird. I think I get that he's a world champion and everything, but like, I think there's a big difference between fighting someone like Molina in your 17th fight and fighting somebody like Molina in your 34th fight. I just think it's a big difference, and at the end of the day, he's in the top 15 of the thing. I mean, I agree that I think Molina is probably better than Brazil. Brazil was just ridiculously slow. I mean, Molina's slow, but he's not as slow as Brazil was. Yeah, Brazil's got a good chin. I mean, it's not a great fight, but I'm not as down on it as some people. And I do think it's the comparison that's making us look at it. I also think the card's actually really good. I think if you look at it, Luis Ortiz is on that card. We don't know who he's fighting yet. Chisora versus White. The build-up for that fight is just bound to be decent. Scott Quigg, who apparently is moving up to featherweight. I don't know if anybody, if any of you's heard that. I heard that he's moving up to featherweight, and it's some sort of eliminator. Caliafai against Conception. Conception's a decent fighter. And Burton versus Buglioni. I mean, it's not. I don't think it's an awful card. I think it's a pretty decent card.
Wait here. Now, let me in there for a second. Like, do you remember, like, somebody on one of our, maybe it was last week's podcast, left a comment saying I was being too harsh on AJ. Like it's nearly 5 years since the Olympics. Well, it's 2012, so it's like 4.5 years since the Olympics. right? And in those 4.5 years, he's fought 17 times, right? And they, at this stage, like after the Olympics when Lewis won, Lewis had fought like Bruno, he'd fought Tucker, he had fought Razor Ruddock, he'd fought all these guys, and he was a world champion.
Not in 17 fights. Lennox Lewis.
No, not in 17 fights, but in the same period of time, Paul. I'm talking about like the same period of time. The fact that he's not fighting like Mike Tyson in the same period of time had fought 35 times, right? It's not just a thing that AJ, he needs to get the fights. Like those boys were fighting more times in that same amount of time. So it's hard to compare them because I know, there's different things. Some of them had more experience than AJ, whatever. But look, I think that it's 4.5 years, nearly, it'll be 5 years probably come next June, right? And his standard, you could make a case, I think you could make a very good case that his standard has plateaued or gone down. Like John Molina Jr. in Brazil, it's like, we could have an argument all night about which one is better. And the other thing I just like to say as well is about Chisora versus White. Now, I'm sure there'll be, I'm sure somebody will be bottled or glassed or bummed in the press conference. But like, do you remember after White fought and also that night I think Chisora fought Pulev? Do you remember we were talking about what would be the worst heavyweight fight we could watch? And it was like, can you imagine if White fought Chisora? Imagine how bad a fight that's going to be, we said at the time.
Yeah,
right?
I have to agree that it's going to be a shit fight. But
it's going to be a terrible fight.
Yeah, it is going to be a shit fight.
Yeah, so we got that one. We got that fight that we don't want to see. We got Buglioni versus Thingy, which is just like a British title level fight. We got the Irish.
I think that's a very good fight, but I appreciate it's not a glamorous fight.
Yeah, no, I agree. I reckon that's probably a good fight. Yeah, so I'm not slagging that fight at all. That's a British level fight. Just putting these in context. We got Katie Taylor making her debut. Like seriously, I'm Irish. I couldn't give two rats shites about that. Oh, is it not on that bill?
They've got a Wembley Arena bill on the 26th where you've got Katie Taylor, then you've got Horror David versus Scarpa and one or two other fights.
Katie Taylor is on the bill because on the Matchroom site it says Katie Taylor's on the bill. So
I think she is.
I got that wrong, mate.
I think so, mate.
She might be on both.
Maybe she's on both.
Yeah, we got your man from Birmingham fighting contraception. And he, I don't know too much about that fight, but that's the equivalent to Charlie Edwards fighting your man Casimiro, right? So that to me, and then you got a couple of TBAs, Ortiz against the TBA, Callum Smith against the TBA. Who the fuck wants to watch Callum Smith? Why the fuck are they putting him on this card?
Well, Callum Smith is going to fight Luke Blackledge. It's no longer TBA.
It's not TBA. Oh, sorry, you're right. Yeah.
I almost would rather it be TBA, to be perfectly frank, after we saw Blackledge get heavily put down by a guy with a 7-52 record and then labour to a victory in his last fight. Just to correct ourselves, Tom, you were right, mate. Katie Taylor is on both cards. So she's making her debut Wembley Arena, November 26th. And then she's obviously not expected to get beat because she's out again December the 10th. Do you know what? Just to butt in, Paul makes some good points, actually. I spoke about this with Paul in person, actually, a week or so ago. But I don't think Molina is a terrible fight. I would say Molina is in the top 30 heavyweights. He's been in some decent scraps. We know what sort of level he is. I think he's a similar level of opponent to what Joshua's been in with. I don't think it's a terrible fight. But this is where the expectations being set contrast to the reality. And, that is why I don't like all of this talk. And it's not just Eddie Hearn and Joshua who do this whatsoever. It's a wider problem in boxing, but our expectations were sky high, and then we've got Eric Molina. And it's not just a fight where Joshua is a huge favourite. It's a fight where the opponent is out of shape, on short notice, not very marketable, and it kind of all ties into one, I guess.
And the thing is as well, I guess on the downside, Molina did get dropped multiple times by Wilder, and to be fair, Wilder looked awful in that fight. I personally think 6 rounds is probably a bit generous. I think it might. I think it might be quicker than that. I just think it, like you say, Tom. It is a big part of why we're so disappointed is because we thought we might get Klitschko. A few of us dared to believe. Do you know what I mean? And it's kind of like, Molina.
And what about
Let's see if it.
Sorry, you go, Tom.
Sorry, no. Let's just see if he brings Klitschko in, like, because yet again he's done it. He gave a list of all these names and he's given us the worst one.
Yeah.
And that's a long running fucking tactic. Now let's see if he brings Klitschko. All the talk about Klitschko. Let's see if it actually happens. I'm skeptical. Like, why is he going? Why are there all the better names not hit up for grabs? And why is he not paying the money to get the people he likes?
Well, I think a lot of them didn't want to fight, did they? Pulev didn't want to fight. He wanted to fight in Sofia. But
you're taking that at Eddie Hearn's word now. Like, Pulev got offered, and they gave him they upped his offer. They upped the percentage they're going to give him, and then they upped the percentage again they were going to give him. Yeah, if you're going to travel away from home, where
Pulev come out, nobody's heard Pulev come out in an interview or on Twitter or anything saying, "Listen, this is all bullshit." I think promoters are full of shit just as much as you do, Tom. But when they say something about a boxer and the boxer don't refute it, you can what can you do? But do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but
if that was me, if I was Pulev and he was there on IFL TV saying, "Oh, we've offered him all this money, it was bullshit," I'd be on Twitter 5 minutes later.
But what Eddie Hearn was very specific in that interview. He said he didn't offer. He said he offered Pulev the first offer. They came back with him with an increased offer, and then they eventually came back with another increased offer. And then he said, "But I don't want to mention how much money was involved." Right? When he says something like that, if you want to say how much did you offer him, because if Josh was getting $4 million, and they're offering Pulev £500,000 or £600,000, why are you going to go to? Because Pulev's not a knockout artist. Why are you going to go to England and get robbed on a card and get 500 grand? You know what I mean? When you can sit there and say, "No, I want $1 million to come over to England," or whatever. It's pretty reasonable to me to look for as much money as you can get. When Joshua's, how much money is Joshua going to get for this fight? He's going to get big bucks, and he's going to be fighting fucking a fella who has a puncher's chance. But let's see what happens. All these other names that are in there that he could be fighting, how come he keeps on picking the three worst guys that he could fight and then giving us the worst of the three worst guys?
Well, one thing he did say, and I think circumstances will mean that he'll be right in this. He said that this will be the last time there'll be an opponent that people are disappointed with. And if you look at the landscape, all the people that are kind of like left in the running now after this are going to be decent fights. I mean, there's only maybe would you say Johan Depar that people wouldn't be overly thrilled with, although Johan Depar isn't a bad fighter and has just had a really good knockout win over Robert Helenius. So there's not really many more kind of disappointing fights there for him. It's inevitable that he's going to have to start fighting some of the guys that we're, as fans, we're looking to see him in with. At some point, it's inevitable because there isn't enough bums left.
Well, we see. He's an inventive man. We'll see, I think.
Let's, Paul, let me just, I'll come back to Jet in 1 second, but Paul, just before I do, Briggs versus Browne, mate, a word on that.
What can anybody tell me what Shannon Briggs has done to deserve this fight?
In a word, no.
I can tell you, he released a video where he was mixing some DJ stuff and filling a skeleton's head full of tequila.
Okay, well, I take it back then.
He definitely deserves it.
I've nothing to say. I didn't realise he'd done all that. No, I've nothing to say. Fair play to him, man.
Yeah, it doesn't take money to get an eliminator. It just takes some kind of voodoo shit going down.
I just think if Lucas Browne is anything like he was in the Chigayev fight, all he really has to do is stay away from that big right for about 2 rounds, and then Briggs has got nothing. If you look back, and it's the Briggs Zumbano love fight is what's about 3 years ago now, and after 2 rounds, Briggs, I mean, you could have rolled a cigarette while you were waiting for one of Briggs's punches to land from like round 3 onwards. You could have rolled it, lit it, smoked half of it. Honest to God. So I don't understand why Briggs has got this shot. I really don't. I don't get it.
Interesting stuff. Okay, Jet, I'm going to come back to you, and we're going to start with Martin Murray versus Chudinov. Not Fedor Chudinov, who famously fought Felix Sturm, but Dmitry Chudinov, who also famously fought Chris Eubank Jr. Now, obviously, this fight was made off the back of the Arthur Abraham-Martin Murray fight not going ahead. So give us your take on that matchup. How do you see it? How competitive do you see it?
Yeah, for me, it's not a completely, competitive matchup for me. It's just pretty much routine win for Martin Murray. I think Martin Murray is the sort of fringe world level operator. He's a world level operator. I mean, he just fights to the sort of person's style. I mean, Arthur Abraham, I think he could have won that fight quite comfortably, but he kind of fought slow. He just threw punches and punches for the sake of it. He didn't really throw any meat behind the shots. I know he hurt he hurt Abraham in the 8th round, if I'm correct. But it is what it is with Martin Murray. You just kind of get, you get what's on the screen. Really, to be honest, it's tough to kind of put him in a specific category. He's there or thereabouts. But Dmitry Chudinov isn't great. He's nothing compared to Fedor Chudinov, and I just don't expect him to really. He has a good chin, I give him that. But apart from that, he's not really sort of skilled or anything like that. So I expect him to lose quite handily to Martin Murray.
Okay. Do you think it's a fight where actually, before I get to that, is this Chudinov's first fight at super middle, mate?
He was actually campaigning, I think, at light heavyweight for a brief time, and so he moved from middleweight. Yeah, he moved from middleweight to light heavyweight, and it said on BoxRec he was a light heavyweight. So I wasn't sure, and then now he's back down. He's fighting at super middle, which is quite weird because he was, he felt a lot small on the screen when I was watching it on TV. He looked, substantially smaller than Chris Eubank Jr. So, moving up from middle to super middle is not the best idea with some of the super middles out there. Martin Murray obviously is a probably natural super middleweight, but then you get the bigger ones like the hulking sort of light heavyweight, cruiserweight guys. Who's it? Callum Smith, Gilberto Ramirez, George Groves, even Badu Jack's quite big. Those sort of top guys, they're massive for someone like, Dmitry Chudinov. Even Fedor Chudinov's quite small. So, yeah, I mean, it is what it is. And I expect Martin Murray, as I said, to win quite routine, sort of comfortable performance.
Okay, makes sense. And Jet, you mentioned Jamie Conlon. What's the story on that?
Yeah, I read on Twitter that he has a final eliminator, WBO. So, not against David Coos or something like that. So, I'm not sure. I know WBO world champion is Naoya Inoue. So, I'll be honest, Jamie Conlon's going to get decapitated in that fight. If he wins this fight and, that fight happens for a world title, Inoue will just kill him. I think, that's a hazard to his health, mate. That's going
to be a vacant belt.
You reckon?
It is, yeah. That's why he's going for it.
Has he vacated it? Because I haven't.
Not yet, but Jamie Conlon pretty much admitted as much. Frank knows what's going on, so he's probably moving up or fighting or going to leave it off.
Yeah, he's probably moving up. He's quite big for Superfly anyway, so yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. But Jamie Connon probably goes down as one of the world champions in Britain if he wins a world title. Not being harsh on the guy, but just he's in good fights, but fundamentally he's not good enough. Like at the top.
Worse than Stuart Hall.
On a level, on a par, I think they're probably on a par, but I don't know. I don't know. It's tough. I mean, I think he was going to fight Paul Butler, which was Paul Butler would have won that fight for me, even though I'm not a fan of Paul Butler either. But I think Paul Butler would have won that quite handily. Probably like 10-2 or something like that. But obviously he's moved up, and Conlan's still at Superfly, so obviously he's going to get a world title. So best of luck to the kid, I guess.
And yeah, just before we move on, mate, one thing that I had put down to bring up, and Tom brought it up earlier on, actually, but these suggestions of Lawrence Okoli knocking out Joshua, this isn't the first time we've heard Anthony Joshua sparring rumours. He always looks fairly good when he's actually in the pro ring, but lots of sparring rumours. Joshua is obviously a very capable operator. I find it hard to believe that he's as terrible as it sounds in sparring. But what's your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, do you know what? It's a slight surprise, but not surprising. At the same time, it's kind of a weird one. I mean, with Anthony Joshua, obviously we've heard David Price knocking him out in sparring, and I understand David Price because he's a big puncher. Regardless of what people think about his chin and that sort of stuff, it is made of paper mache, as I always say. That's the expression. But he hits like a mule, so I understand getting knocked out by David Price. But Lawrence Okoli, I mean, he, as Irish Tom correctly pointed out, he's probably a cruiserweight. And getting put down by a sort of 200-pound guy. I know some of the guys at 200 pounds, they kind of cut down, so they're kind of natural heavyweights. But I don't know how to take it. I mean, obviously, either Okoli's really, really, really skilled, and he's obviously putting down, or he punches like a mule or something like that. I don't know. It's just it's a weird one. But what we're hearing about Joshua is not. It's not. Great, I guess, going down the line. If you're facing an A-grade puncher like Luis Ortiz, Vladimir Klitschko, those sort of guys, you don't want them punching Joshua in the face, because Joshua seems like the guy, when he gets clocked, he doesn't know his whereabouts, and he kind of, we saw in a Dillian White fight, he got rocked momentarily and his legs were stiff, but he kind of didn't know what to do, and he couldn't work out in the range, and he's a person who, a boxer relies a lot on range. So I don't know. It's a bit of a weird one to take. I don't know how to, kind of take it, but I'm not surprised at the same time as I am surprised.
Okay, makes sense. Hopefully, I'm sure more news on that will come out as the build-up continues. It seems that there's certainly a few leaks coming out there, so we shall see. We're going to move on now to next week's boxing. We're going to start with Paul. And Paul, the obvious starting place is Manny Pacquiao versus Vargas. This is a fight that we actually haven't spoken about too much on this show yet. So, if you just want to give us an initial insight to your take on that one.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I think it's a good fight. I think it's a good card. Vargas, I mean, he's not the best opponent that Pacquiao could have picked. I think if Manny is in any kind of form, certainly if he's in the kind of form he was in his last fight, you'd expect him to win. There's a couple of things that cast doubt on it, though, for me. One is he is full-time senator now over there, and apparently is working in the Senate in the day and training in the evening, which strikes me as really fucking bizarre. And that was also confirmed by Freddie Roach. I saw an interview with Freddie Roach where Freddie was saying, he was finishing as late as 7 o'clock sometimes, and then we were training for 3 hours. So Vargas is probably the biggest welterweight Manny's fought for quite some time. He's big welterweight. Maybe not quite as big as Oh, the one that put the stuff in his hand. Oh, fucking hell.
Margarito.
Margarito, yeah. Probably not quite as big as Margarito, but he's certainly bigger than anybody else other than Margarito he's fought lately. So I mean, time will tell. As in, like, we'll see. What a 38-year-old Manny Pacquiao who is working a full-time job in the day. I can imagine like a senator is.
Are you saying politicians work a full-time job?
Yeah, well, yeah, well, it's hard to know. I would imagine that he's probably got a bigger workload than the UK politicians in the Philippines, though. But I don't know. So yeah, but the cards. I mean, it's a good card. Nonito Donaire against the young lad Jesse Magdaleno. That's a good fight. Oscar Valdez in just a fight he's expected to win, and Zhu Shimin's fighting on the undercard as well. So I'm looking forward to it. Actually, I'm looking forward to this weekend. Really am.
Are any of the other fights competitive, Paul, or is it just that the Pacquiao Vargas fight is competitive?
Well, the Donaire Magdaleno fight's competitive.
Yeah,
Sure.
yeah.
Oscar Valdez versus Osawa, I don't think it's competitive at all. I think Valdez takes Osawa out in about a round or two. To be quite honest, to be completely honest, I don't know much about this Pratisak Papoin that Zhu Shimin's fighting. I've never seen him fight, so I haven't got a fucking clue. To be honest.
Okay. Fair enough.
Jet might know something about it.
I'm sure he will. We'll go to Iris Tom just first. Iris, Pacquiao versus Vargas, mate. As it creeps up on us, more and more people are seeing this as a competitive fight. Gonna be honest, I've got to say that I'm thinking Pacquiao should get this done. What about you?
Yeah, no, I think it's an easy win for Pacquiao. The best bet of the week out is Manny Pacquiao to win on points. What price do you reckon you get?
Manny Pacquiao to win on points. I would guess that would be 1-2.
Do you seriously? Because Manny Pacquiao was like 1-7, 1-9, somewhere like that to win.
Okay, in that case, maybe like I don't know, maybe more like 1 to. Well, if it's 1-9, you'd have to presume that he will win on points. So
he hasn't knocked anybody out since 2009.
Yeah,
7 years.
Yeah. Or maybe I'm wrong then. Yeah. Well, obviously I'm wrong. What's the?
You get 4-6.
4-6 on Manny to win on points.
Yeah, so it's basically saying 40% chance. So I think like Manny's this probably 19 times out of 20, and probably 70% of those times are going to be by points. So I think it's probably close to about 65% chance he wins on points, and you're getting 40%. So I think it's pretty good value.
Yeah, no, I can see that. I think
getting nearly twice odds.
Yeah, do you think the sort of the Tim Bradley fight showed the limitations of Vargas?
Oh yeah, Jesus, did he win a round?
If that, mate. Yeah, if that. It was hard to say, isn't it?
Hard to say, and he bet Saddam Ali, but who the hell is Saddam Ali? Like, I've heard of Saddam Ali, but I never actually saw him. So it's like, so I think Manny, the death squad, Pacquiao to win on points.
Manny Pacquiao. And what about the undercard, mate? Is there anything on that that's standing out and getting you?
What's on it again? Oh, Quaylar is fighting somebody, and who else is fighting?
Donaire versus Jesse Magdaleno, young prospect. Oscar Valdez in a nothing fight against some Japanese kid, and Zhu Shiming.
Zushimi. Yeah, like, you know, I think that could be a good fight with Magdaleno and Thingy, but I haven't seen them. And to be honest with you, I haven't really seen your man fighting Donaire fighting. No, I've seen Valdez, but I haven't seen Donaire fighting in a couple of years. I think I can't remember the last time I saw him fighting, but you know, so maybe one of them could be a decent fight. But I'm not hyped about it, to be honest with you. I don't think it's a good fight, and probably not even a good card.
Absolutely, yeah. It could turn into a. I guess it depends how the fight goes. Stylistically, it's going to be interesting. But for me, you know, was Vargas is a big guy, and was he's a credit, and obviously, was credit to him for the Saddam Ali fight goes. I think the levels were shown against Tim Bradley, and for me, you know, a lot of people are writing Manny Pacquiao off for this fight. They're saying he's finally got old. You know,
such rubbish.
It's nonsense. I mean, his retirement was always a fake retirement. It's one of the shortest retirements in boxing history, and I actually think Pacquiao looked superb against Tim Bradley. I think this is forgotten about too quickly. I thought Manny Pacquiao looked, you know, real spectacular against Tim Bradley that night. And I know Bradley maybe it wasn't his best performance, but I thought it was epic stuff from Pacquiao. So if he comes in 80% as good as that, he should have the beating of Vargas, surely.
Yeah, well, like there's a great video on that on a boxing analyst, Barry Robinson, trainer, does a video on Pacquiao's improvements from fighting Floyd from when he fought Tim Bradley, and you know he was saying how he's more defensively responsible and he's got new tricks put in that he basically copied from Floyd. So like I think it was a really good performance. And all these people who thinking that Pacquiao was past it, look, Pacquiao's got loads of skills. He's got loads of skills. Yeah. He's not just relying on his speed. So, you know, he's a really coordinated guy, and you know, these lighter guys can fight till later. Well, maybe that's wrong, but he's you know, he's just a shoe-in for that. I think you're getting 4 to 6 on you're getting like a 60%, 66% return on your money when it's probably only about. You know, that's just really good value when he's going to win it 60% of the time. So, you know, it's just great return on your value. I think that's a great bet. What was I going to say?
I wouldn't write Vargas off completely, though. I mean, like, I agree he didn't win a round in the Bradley fight, but he almost won the last one, if anyone remembers what happened at the end there. He came very close to knocking Tim Bradley out, and then the referee stopped the fight 10 seconds early and whatnot. I mean, like, I wouldn't write him off. I agree. If Pacquiao's anything like the Manny Pacquiao we all know, then he should win it quite easily. But I think it's definitely competitive.
I don't think it's competitive. I think it's got a puncher's chance.
Yeah.
And also, Pacquiao's been better defensively since the Floyd.
Yeah,
and also since the Marquez knockout, he's definitely been more defensive. I just don't see it as a competitive fight.
Do you guys, what do you guys think about the fact that, you know, like, and it's confirmed by Freddie about him working till 7 o'clock some days and then training in the evening? Do you guys not think there's a possibility that would have an impact at 38?
That just sounds like PR to me. Oh, he might be on the slide, get more people to buy it. I don't read anything into that shite.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, there's been. It's funny. There's been mixed signals coming out of the camp. Freddie Roach has been quite. There's been times where he's been negative himself about Manny Pacquiao. But for me, we talk about boxers getting old overnight. You know, it really is. Vargas is a creditable fighter, but he is a long way. I mean, I have Vargas a long way behind like the Porters and Garcias and Furmans and Brooks and Khans of this world. Like, I have him a level below those guys. I mean, Manny Pacquiao really is going to have to get old overnight to the point of, you know, being a completely shot fighter in order to lose this fight, as far as I'm concerned. And as I say, for me, he still looked really good following on from his fight against Tim Bradley. So, you know, that's my opinion on it. Yeah, let's go to you, Jet. What's your take on the fight?
Yeah, mate, it's not a competitive fight for me. I think Manny Pacquiao wins that, pretty comfortably. I think, Jesse Vargas has got a good chin, so, Irish Tom's obviously put out the sort of betting odds there. I think Manny Pacquiao probably, it might be similar to kind of the Chris Algieri fight, I think. He'll knock him down maybe once or twice. Obviously, he knocked down Algieri about 6 times, but, he'll knock Vargas down, but he'll win all the rounds pretty convincingly. So, I wouldn't expect too much from Vargas. I know he obviously knocked down Saddam Ali, but he's not a big puncher for me. And he never has been a big puncher, even at 140. And I think, in the fights at 140, he was really struggling. I don't know if that was because he was making weight or something like that. Maybe this Saddam Ali fight probably flattered to deceive him a bit, made him look a bit better than what he was or what he is. So, it's not a competitive fight. The other fights on the card, maybe slightly better, or just, you get more value for your viewing. Jesse Magdaleno versus Nonito Donaire is a good little fight, actually, at Super Bantam for Donaire's WBO belt. Zhu Shiming's fighting for the WBO vacant belt at flyweight. Estrada's obviously moved up to Super Fly, and he's vacated 2 belts, so Zhu Shiming's fighting for one of them. And what's the other one? Oscar Valdez is defending his belt against some Japanese guy or some Oriental person, and he should win that pretty comfortably if we know what is with Oscar Valdez, because he looks a class prospect.
Definitely. And what percentage chance do you give Vargas of upsetting the odds?
I'll be honest and say about 10%. I'll be honest. I'm not giving him that much of a chance. 5 to 10%. I don't think he's got a hope in hell of beating Manny Pacquiao. People say Manny Pacquiao's old. I don't believe that. I think he looked. I'm with you in that camp. That I thought he looked really, really good against Tim Bradley. He looked a lot better, obviously, since the Floyd Mayweather fight. He obviously lost to Floyd. He was outskilled, outgunned that fight. But against Tim Bradley, he really put it on Tim Bradley, and Tim Bradley, he knocked him down twice, and just really, really looked good against him. So I don't think Vargas has a chance in this fight, I'll be honest.
Good stuff. Jet, no, thank you very much, guys. It was a condensed show tonight, I'm afraid, due to my frustrating work commitments. So we're going to have to wrap it up and call it a day there. But I wanted to do one, and I'm glad that the guys did, nevertheless, just to get some of the major stories out there and get our picks in for the fights this weekend. So we'll be back with normal service resuming next week. Join us 8:30 on Wednesdays, and apologies again, it was a shorter one this week, but I hope you enjoyed it nevertheless. Thanks a lot, guys.
Ciao.
Take care all.
Cheers, guys.